Tonight, as you close your eyes, you'll discover the ancient secret that Zen masters have used for centuries to find deep, unshakable peace, even during life's greatest challenges. This isn't just another meditation. These forgotten stories contain hidden keys that unlock the door to your most restful sleep and profound inner wisdom. Welcome back to Moonmind Temple. Those who joined us for part 1 have already experienced the remarkable difference these tales can make, with many reporting the deepest sleep they've had in years. Tonight's journey goes even deeper. Feel your body becoming heavier with each breath as you imagine yourself walking along a misty mountain path in ancient Japan. The soft padding of your footsteps creates a gentle rhythm. The air carries the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Ahead, through parting mist, a small temple appears where a single lantern glows in the gathering dusk. Inside this temple wait 14 Zen masters, each holding a story so powerful it has survived 1,000 years, not because these tales merely entertain, but because they have the unique ability to quiet the restless mind and open the heart. Some will surprise you with unexpected wisdom. Others will finally help you make sense of challenges you've been facing. Those who listen to the end often experience a strange phenomenon, a mental clarity that follows them into their dreams and throughout the next day. As one listener told us, "It's like someone finally turned off the constant noise in my head." So make yourself comfortable, allow your breathing to slow, and let these ancient masters guide you to that place of natural peace that exists within you. Tonight, between stories and silence, you might just discover what the Zen masters called your original face, the perfect, peaceful awareness that's been waiting for you all along. Our first story begins now, transporting you to a time when a simple question about poetry revealed the deepest truth about life itself. Feel yourself drifting deeper into relaxation, your body becoming heavier as your mind grows lighter. The boundaries between your conscious mind and the world of dreams begin to blur as you journey to Japan during the Meiji era, when Western ideas were first flowing into the country after centuries of isolation. The modern world you know dissolves, replaced by the sights, sounds, and sensations of this pivotal moment in Japanese history. You find yourself approaching a traditional school building. Though modest in size, it has an atmosphere of serious study. Through the open windows, you can hear the rhythmic chanting of young students reciting their lessons. The scent of ink and paper mingles with the fragrance of cherry blossoms from the courtyard. This school is known throughout the region for its respected headmaster, a man equally versed in traditional Japanese arts and the new Western learning that has begun to transform the country. Students from wealthy and ambitious families seek entry, knowing that here they will receive an education that bridges old and new, east and west. As you slide open the wooden door and step inside, you remove your sandals, as is customary. The polished wooden floors feel cool beneath your feet. You move quietly down the hallway, drawn toward a particular classroom where something significant seems about to unfold. Inside this room, 12 students sit on cushions arranged in a semicircle. They are teenagers, dressed in simple student attire, their expressions alert and attentive. Before them, sits the headmaster himself, a man perhaps in his 50s, with intelligent eyes behind round spectacles, and the straight posture of someone who embodies the discipline he teaches. Today's lesson, you discover, focuses on the art of Chinese poetry, a form that has been studied by educated Japanese for centuries. Chinese characters cover the blackboard, arranged in the distinctive patterns of classical verse. The headmaster has just completed explaining the technical aspects of structure, meter, and classical allusions. One student raises his hand. He is perhaps 16, his face earnest, his posture perfect, clearly one of the most dedicated pupils. "Sensei," he asks, "I understand the technical requirements you have explained, but I still don't feel confident in my ability to create a truly good Chinese poem. Can you offer any guidance on how to capture the essence, the spirit of the form?" The headmaster regards the student thoughtfully, seeming to weigh his response. The room falls completely silent. Even the birds outside seem to pause their singing, as if they too wish to hear the master's answer to this essential question about artistic creation. To write a Chinese poem, the headmaster finally says, you must have a particular state of mind. The students lean forward slightly, notebooks ready, anticipating a detailed explanation of this special mental state, perhaps a list of meditative techniques or creative exercises. Instead, the headmaster continues, if you want to write a Chinese poem, first drink up a gallon of sake. Then lie down in a field under the warm autumn sun. Shock registers on the students' faces. This respected educator, known for his emphasis on discipline and proper technique, has just suggested intoxication and idleness as the path to poetic creation. Several exchange confused glances, wondering if this is some sort of test or joke. The earnest student who asked the question appears particularly bewildered. But sensei, he ventures hesitantly, wouldn't such behavior be considered improper? And how would one maintain the technical precision you have taught us if one were inebriated? A slight smile crosses the headmaster's face. The technical aspects I have taught you are merely the vessel, he explains. They are necessary but not sufficient. True poetry emerges when the boundaries of the calculating mind dissolve, when the artificial separation between the poet and the world falls away. The sake and sunshine are not literal prescriptions, but pointers to a state of natural awareness, unclouded by excessive thinking. He pauses, noting the continuing confusion on some faces, then continues more directly. Let me ask you this. When the cherry trees blossom in spring, do they consult a manual on how to arrange their petals? When the autumn moon rises over Mount Fuji, does it worry whether it is following the proper procedure? Yet these natural phenomena inspire our greatest poetry precisely because they express their nature completely, without self-consciousness or striving. Understanding begins to dawn on the students' faces. The headmaster is not advocating drunken composition, but pointing to a deeper truth about creativity, that technical mastery must be balanced with spontaneity, that perfect form, without living spirit, produces empty verses. Practice your forms diligently, the headmaster concludes. Master the techniques I teach you. But remember that the greatest Chinese poems were written by those who could embody both discipline and freedom, who knew the rules so well they could transcend them, who experienced the world directly rather than merely thinking about it. When form and spontaneity become one, true poetry emerges, whether you're writing Chinese verses or living your daily life. Years later, the earnest student, now a respected poet himself, would recall this lesson as the moment when his understanding of art, and indeed of life itself, fundamentally shifted. The headmaster's seemingly outrageous suggestion contained a truth that transcended the specific context of Chinese poetry, that technical perfection without direct, unmediated experience produces work that may be correct, but lacks the living spark that touches the human heart. This delightful story points to a tension present not just in artistic creation, but in spiritual practice and daily life. The balance between form and freedom, discipline and spontaneity, thinking and direct experience. The headmaster's unexpected advice highlights a paradox that many of us encounter: how the very techniques and procedures designed to help us master a skill can sometimes become barriers to its most authentic expression. In Zen Buddhism, this paradox is well recognized. Beginning students are given precise instructions for meditation posture, breathing techniques, and mental approaches. These forms provide necessary structure, especially for minds accustomed to wandering unchecked. Yet at a certain point, too much focus on doing it right can itself become an obstacle, creating self-consciousness that prevents the natural state of awareness from emerging. The headmaster's mention of sake and sunshine points to a fundamental Zen teaching that our natural state of mind, before we complicate it with excessive thinking, self-judgment, and striving, is already complete and perfect. Just as nature creates beauty without effort or planning, our most authentic expressions often emerge when we temporarily set aside our calculating mind and allow our inherent wisdom to manifest spontaneously. This doesn't mean abandoning technique or discipline. In fact, true spontaneity in art, as in life, usually comes after extensive training, not before it. As the Zen saying goes, first there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. We begin by seeing the world conventionally and learning the rules, then move through a phase where old certainties dissolve, finally arriving at a perspective where conventional forms are neither rejected nor clung to, but used freely in service of direct expression. As you drift towards sleep, consider where in your own life you might be experiencing tension between form and freedom. Perhaps you've mastered certain techniques in your work, relationships, or spiritual practice, yet find yourself feeling constrained by the very structures that once supported your growth. Or maybe you've emphasized spontaneity at the expense of discipline, missing the foundation that allows true freedom to emerge. The headmaster's paradoxical advice invites us to dance between these poles rather than settling at either extreme. To master the forms so thoroughly that we can forget them when needed. To bring disciplined attention to the present moment until presence itself becomes natural. to recognize that sometimes the most direct path to wisdom involves setting aside our efforts to be wise. Like the earnest student, you too might discover that the truest expression of whatever you're seeking, whether poetry, peace, or purpose, emerges not from straining to achieve it, but from allowing what is already present to reveal itself naturally, like the moon reflecting in still water, like cherry blossoms opening in spring, perfectly and without effort. Feel your body becoming heavier now, melting into your mattress as we travel together to medieval Japan. The gentle rhythm of your breath carries you deeper into this state of peaceful receptivity. As you sink further into relaxation, imagine the weight of your eyelids growing impossibly heavy. You are now in 15th century Kyoto. Feel the cool evening air against your skin as lanterns glow in the distance. The sweet scent of cherry blossoms mingles with wood smoke. The sound of distant flutes reaches your ears. You find yourself approaching an elegant mansion where servants hurry about, preparing for an important gathering. Inside, a wealthy silk merchant paces anxiously, checking every detail. Feel the smooth wooden floors beneath your feet. Notice the perfectly arranged cushions, the gleaming lacquerware, the musicians tuning their instruments in the corner. The air carries the tantalizing aroma of rare delicacies being prepared in the kitchen. The merchant has spared no expense for this dinner party. Master Ikkyu must be impressed, he whispers to his chief servant. His presence will elevate my standing among all of Kyoto's elite. You feel his nervous anticipation, as if it were your own. As distinguished guests arrive in their silken finery, notice how each bow and greeting follows the precise choreography of status and obligation. The conversations, political alliances, business ventures, carefully disguised rivalries create a tapestry of social positioning. Yet beneath this refined surface, you sense an undercurrent of tension, of hidden calculations and silent judgments. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. A figure appears at the entrance, wild-haired, dressed in simple worn robes, carrying only a wooden begging bowl. His eyes seem to look through rather than at people. This is Ikkyu, the unconventional Zen master known throughout Japan for his unpredictable wisdom. Feel the merchant's nervous relief as he hurries forward, bowing too deeply. Master Ikkyu, what an honor to welcome you to my humble home. The word humble catches in his throat as he gestures toward the obvious opulence surrounding them. Ikkyu simply nods and follows him inside. Notice the immediate hush that falls over the gathering. Experience through your own senses how the carefully cultivated social atmosphere gives way to genuine curiosity. The wild-haired monk sits cross-legged at the place of honor, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The conversations gradually resume around him, growing louder as servants bring dish after exquisite dish. Listen to the delicate clink of ceramic, the murmur of voices, the occasional burst of carefully measured laughter. Feel the merchant's growing unease as Ikkyu eats modestly, neither praising nor criticizing the lavish food. This silence somehow disturbs the host, more than any criticism could. As the evening progresses and sake cups are repeatedly filled, you sense a building tension in the room. It breaks unexpectedly when Ikkyu suddenly rises to his feet. Feel the immediate attention his movement commands. "Honored host," Ikkyu says with a respectful bow, "might I trouble you for a simple cup of water from your well?" Experience the ripple of confusion passing through the room. Water? Common well water, when the finest sake in Kyoto flows freely. The merchant blinks, momentarily puzzled, then recovers. "Of course, Master Ikkyu. My servant will bring fresh water immediately." "I would prefer to draw it myself," Ikkyu replies, his voice gentle but firm. "If you would show me to your well." Follow them now as curiosity draws several guests into the garden. Feel the immediate relief of cool night air after the warmth of the crowded room. Above, the full moon hangs like a perfect silver coin. Its light washes everything in ethereal clarity: the carefully tended pines, the stone lanterns, the moss-covered ground. In one corner stands a simple stone well. Approach it with Ikkyu and the others. Feel the cool, rough stone beneath your fingers as you join them in leaning forward to peer into its depths. Far below, the dark water holds a perfect reflection of the moon, complete despite the well's narrow opening. Watch as Ikkyu reaches for the wooden bucket and rope. The creak of the pulley cuts through the night, somehow both ordinary and profound. When the bucket reaches the water, disturbing the moon's reflection, Ikkyu pauses. "Look," he says simply. "What do you see?" The moon reflected on the water offers one guest. "Yes, the full moon, perfectly captured," adds another. Feel Ikkyu's presence, calm, attentive, fully embodied, as he nods and speaks. The moon travels thousands of miles through the heavens. Yet its reflection rests perfectly within this humble well, undisturbed, until the water is troubled. His voice carries easily in the night air. The water reflects the moon no differently than the emperor's garden lake. The moon shows no preference. It illuminates mansions and hovels with the same light. Watch as he draws up the bucket and drinks deeply. The sound of his swallowing seems somehow significant in the expectant silence. "Delicious," he sighs, "more refreshing than any sake." His eyes now meet each person present. This well water quenches thirst perfectly, asking nothing in return. It does not care if the drinker is rich or poor, noble or common. It simply gives of itself completely. Feel the weight of this moment as Ikkyu hands the bucket to the merchant. The water sloshes gently, moonlight dancing on its surface. "Your hospitality has been generous," Ikkyu continues, "but I wonder, is it like this well water, offered freely without thought of status or return? Or is it more like a transaction, given with the expectation of enhancing your reputation?" You sense the merchant's sudden discomfort. A nearby official steps forward defensively. "Are you suggesting our host's generosity is flawed? He has provided the finest of everything." Experience Ikkyu's calm presence, as he responds. I offer no criticism, only an observation. The universe itself is like this well. It gives sunlight, rain, and air freely to all beings. The flowers do not bloom more vibrantly for the wealthy. He gestures to the moon above. True generosity, like true wisdom, makes no distinctions and expects nothing in return. Feel the profound shift as understanding dawns on the merchant's face. His laughter bubbles up, not the careful social chuckle of before, but something genuine and liberating. You are right, Master Ikkyu. I invited you to impress my guests, not to hear truth. I have been giving like a merchant, always calculating the return, rather than giving like this well. His voice carries new awareness. Thank you for this lesson. It is worth more than all the rare delicacies I have served tonight. As they return to the banquet hall, notice how the very quality of the air seems changed. Ikkyu raises his sake cup. Friends, your host has shown me his remarkable well. In its honor, I propose we enjoy this gathering not as people of different ranks, but simply as human beings sharing this fleeting moment under the same moon. Watch as the evening transforms. Conversations deepen beyond social positioning. The merchant moves among his guests with new authenticity, no longer monitoring impressions, but genuinely connecting. And Ikkyu, the wild-haired monk who arrived with nothing, becomes the heart of the gathering with stories and insights that seem perfectly tailored to each person. As the night ends and guests depart, feel the merchant's profound gratitude as he bows to Ikkyu. You arrived with nothing yet gave me the most valuable gift I have ever received. Ikkyu smiles. I gave you nothing you did not already possess. I merely showed you the well that has always been in your garden. With that, he disappears into the moonlit night. As you drift deeper into relaxation, consider the wells in your own life, those simple sources of clarity so easily overlooked. Like the merchant, we often seek satisfaction in elaborate displays while missing the perfect reflection of the moon in ordinary water. The well gives without calculation or expectation, a natural generosity that asks nothing in return. Notice how often your own giving might carry subtle expectations of gratitude, recognition, or future benefit. The universe itself gives freely: sunlight, air, the beauty of the moon, making no distinctions between worthy and unworthy recipients. This is the essence of Buddha nature, reflected in each of us when our minds become still and clear, like undisturbed water. Allow the image of the moon reflected in the well to remain in your mind as you sink even deeper into this restful state. Like that reflection, perfect, yet ephemeral, all experiences arise and pass away. Our grasping at status and recognition cannot provide lasting satisfaction. Yet in recognizing this truth, we open ourselves to a more authentic way of being, one that gives freely, reflects clearly, and appreciates the ordinary magic of existence. Your eyelids grow heavier as you drift further from daily concerns, your body settling into that perfect stillness where ancient wisdom can reach beyond intellect, into the marrow of experience. Travel with me now through the veils of time to a Japanese countryside school where 3 young monks are about to discover the profound gap between spiritual ambition and authentic insight. Morning sunlight spills across a simple courtyard, turning dew-dampened stones to scattered jewels. The fragrance of plum blossoms mingles with the earthy scent of fresh ink being ground on stone, creating an atmosphere that seems suspended between heaven and earth. Birds call to one another from nearby trees, their songs punctuated by the rhythmic tapping of a wooden mallet striking a meditation bell in the distance. Each sound emerges from silence and returns to silence, a natural demonstration of the teaching that will soon unfold. In the center of this tranquil scene stands a modest school building, not a grand temple or formal monastery, but a place where local children receive education from a teacher who seamlessly integrates academic instruction with spiritual wisdom. The building breathes with age and constancy, its wooden beams darkened by decades of incense smoke, its tatami mats worn smooth by countless small feet, learning to navigate both written characters and life's deeper meanings. On the veranda sits the schoolmaster, a middle-aged man whose unpretentious appearance gives no obvious indication of his profound insight. He wears neither elaborate robes nor religious insignia, just the simple attire of a country teacher. Yet something in his presence suggests uncommon depth, the way he moves with unrushed precision, the quality of attention he brings to each child's efforts, the subtle humor that occasionally lights his eyes when a student discovers something for themselves. His hands, calloused from practical work, yet gentle in guidance, move methodically along a line of calligraphy as he prepares the day's lesson. Around him, younger children practice brush strokes with intense concentration, their small faces serious with effort as they attempt to capture not just the form, but the spirit of each character. Several occasionally glance up from their practice, seeking the teacher's nod of approval or subtle correction. The relationship between master and students feels neither rigidly hierarchical nor carelessly casual, but balanced in that perfect middle ground where true learning thrives. This atmosphere of focused yet relaxed attention gives the scene a quality of timelessness, as if this moment of learning has always existed and will continue long after these particular participants have departed. The peaceful rhythm of the morning shatters as 3 older boys, perhaps 14 or 15 years old, burst into the courtyard, their faces flushed with excitement that seems wildly out of place in this contemplative setting. These are the schoolmaster's senior students, who should have been practicing meditation in the small temple hall attached to the school grounds. Their unexpected return and obvious agitation immediately disrupts the younger children's concentration. Small heads turn from carefully formed characters to witness this unusual interruption, brush strokes forgotten as the drama unfolds. The tallest boy, clearly the unofficial leader of the trio, hurries toward the schoolmaster with barely contained excitement. His bow, normally a gesture of mindful respect, is performed with such hasty impatience that it becomes almost a parody of the form. "Teacher, teacher," he calls, his voice far louder than appropriate for the setting. The most extraordinary thing has happened during our meditation. You won't believe what we experienced. Watch the schoolmaster's response, how he neither encourages this disruption through eager attention nor discourages it through obvious disapproval. His face registers neither annoyance at the interrupted lesson nor excitement at the boys' news. He simply turns toward them with complete presence, creating a space where whatever unfolds can be met with equanimity. "What has brought you here in such a state?" he asks, his voice modulated to gentle the excited energy the boys have introduced into the contemplative morning. The second boy steps forward, words tumbling over each other in his eagerness to share. "We were meditating as you instructed, focusing on the lives of the ancient sages, as you taught us last week." His hands gesture animatedly, physicalizing the mental excitement he cannot contain. Then something miraculous happened. I found myself transported in my mind to the presence of Confucius himself. It was as if I traveled through time. He spoke to me directly, sharing wisdom that isn't written in any of the texts we've studied. Feel the ripple of awe that passes through the younger students at this extraordinary claim. Their brushes lie forgotten as wide eyes move between the breathless storyteller and their teacher, seeking confirmation that such miraculous communication is indeed possible. A few whisper behind cupped hands, their expressions combining wonder with the first seeds of skepticism that mark developing discernment. The third boy, not to be outdone, quickly adds his own supernatural encounter. "That's nothing compared to my experience," he interjects, stepping slightly in front of his companion. "Lao Tzu himself appeared before me, revealing secret teachings about the Tao that have never been written down. He showed me visions of perfect harmony between heaven and earth and explained the true meaning of the uncarved block." As he speaks, his chest visibly expands, with the importance of being selected for such rarefied wisdom. The first boy, clearly unwilling to be overshadowed, raises his voice to reclaim attention. "But I had the most profound experience of all," he announces, positioning himself center stage. "Buddha himself appeared before me, surrounded by golden light. He told me I have a special destiny and revealed insights that will revolutionize our understanding of his teachings." His expression conveys absolute certainty in the reality of this vision, along with unmistakable pride at being singled out for such divine attention. Study the schoolmaster's face during these increasingly competitive spiritual claims. Where others might show skepticism, irritation, or even angry dismissal of such obvious fabrications, his expression reveals only patient attention. No judgment creases his brow, no sarcasm tightens his mouth. He simply observes, creating through his complete presence a mirror in which the young monks might eventually see themselves clearly. The younger students have now completely abandoned their calligraphy practice, all eyes moving between the bold storytellers and their unusually quiet teacher. The morning sounds continue unchanged. Birds call, insects hum. The distant temple bell marks time's passage, creating a natural backdrop of constancy against which this human drama of ambition and exaggeration plays out. After what feels like a very long moment of silence, a space the schoolmaster neither rushes to fill nor awkwardly extends, he finally speaks. "How remarkable," he says simply, his tone neither endorsing nor dismissing these extraordinary claims. "Each of you has had such a vision." He rises unhurriedly from his seated position, brushing his simple robe with hands that have known both scholarly and physical labor. "Please, come with me." I wish to show you something before we discuss these experiences further." The three boys exchange glances, their earlier bravado slightly dented by this unexpected response. They had clearly anticipated either impressed amazement or perhaps skeptical questioning, reactions they had prepared for with further elaborate details. This calm redirection catches them off balance. Nevertheless, they follow the schoolmaster as he walks toward the small kitchen at the far end of the courtyard, their earlier excitement now tinged with puzzlement. Inside the modest kitchen, an elderly cook prepares the midday meal with the same meditative attention the schoolmaster brings to teaching. His gnarled hands move with surprising grace as he slices vegetables harvested that morning from the school garden. Rice steams in a large pot, filling the air with its clean, comforting aroma. The cook acknowledges the schoolmaster with a slight nod, but continues his work without interruption, embodying the principle that even the most mundane tasks contain opportunities for complete presence. The schoolmaster approaches a shelf where various containers hold kitchen staples. With deliberate movements that invite full attention, he reaches for a small ceramic jar, removes its lid, and extends it toward the three boys. "Please," he says, "each of you taste this, and tell me what you think." Observe how this simple request immediately alters the atmosphere. The boys look at each other in confusion, then at the jar containing what appears to be ordinary salt. This mundane substance seems worlds away from the exalted spiritual visions they were describing moments before. The jarring shift from transcendent claims to this prosaic reality creates a moment of cognitive dissonance that the schoolmaster allows to hang in the air, neither explaining nor apologizing for this unexpected turn. The first boy, perhaps wanting to maintain his leadership position, steps forward. He wets his finger, dips it into the jar, and brings a small amount to his mouth. His face immediately contorts in an expression of disgust that seems impossible to fake. "Ugh!" he exclaims, unable to maintain any semblance of dignity. "This is terribly bitter. It's not salt at all. It must be some kind of medicine or poison." The second boy, now more cautious after his friend's reaction, takes only the tiniest taste. His expression registers surprise rather than disgust. "No, it's not bitter," he contradicts with the certainty of direct experience. "It's intensely sour, like unripe plums or vinegar." The third boy, perhaps hoping to demonstrate superior discernment, tastes the substance and nods with sage importance. "You're both wrong," he declares with authority. "It's neither bitter nor sour, but unbearably salty, much more concentrated than what we normally use in cooking." Feel the tension building in this simple kitchen as the three boys realize they have given completely contradictory answers about something as basic and verifiable as the taste of a common substance. The elderly cook continues his vegetable preparation, but his movements have slowed, and you sense he is listening carefully to this exchange. The schoolmaster remains silent, his gentle eyes moving from face to face as the boys begin to argue with each other, their former unity in spiritual one-upmanship dissolving into mutual accusations. "How can you possibly say it's sour? Your sense of taste must be completely defective," the first boy insists to the second. "And how could you mistake salt for something bitter?" The third challenges the first, his tone growing increasingly defensive. Listen to how their voices rise, their carefully constructed personas of spiritual advancement crumbling in the face of this simple disagreement about direct sensory experience. The gulf between their claimed transcendent visions and their inability to agree on the basic taste of a common substance grows increasingly apparent, not through the schoolmaster's argument, but through their own revealed confusion. As their debate becomes more heated, the schoolmaster gently places the jar back on the shelf and clears his throat softly. The boys fall silent immediately, suddenly aware of how their behavior has changed. The contrast between their earlier claims of mystical communion with ancient sages and their current bickering over table salt creates a moment of stark revelation that no lecture could have accomplished. "Interesting," says the schoolmaster, his voice neither stern nor mocking but clear as still water. "The three of you cannot agree on the taste of a simple substance that you have all experienced directly, just now, with your own tongues." He allows this observation to settle before continuing. "Yet you expect me to believe that you have each accurately perceived and can now report the exact words and teachings of ancient sages who lived hundreds or thousands of years ago?" The question hangs in the air like incense smoke, not accusatory but revelatory, illuminating without burning. Watch understanding dawn on the boys' faces, like sunrise over distant mountains, gradual yet inevitable. Embarrassment colors their cheeks as they realize the trap they have set for themselves. The first boy looks down at his feet. The second stares at the jar of salt as if seeing it for the first time, and the third begins to stammer an explanation before falling into defeated silence. The elderly cook, without looking up from his vegetable chopping, allows himself the smallest of smiles, not at the boy's discomfort, but at the elegant precision of the teaching unfolding before him. His weathered hands maintain their rhythm, embodying the constancy that comes from decades of practice without pretense. The jar contains ordinary table salt, something you encounter every day, the schoolmaster continues, his tone neither angry nor mocking, but clear as mountain air. Yet pride led each of you to insist on a different experience, rather than simply acknowledging what was actually there. He gestures toward the temple hall, where they should have been meditating. How much more might pride distort your perception of profound spiritual matters? The first boy, gathering his courage, raises his head to meet his teacher's gaze. The defensive pride has drained from his face, replaced by genuine questioning. "We didn't really see the ancient sages, did we?" he asks quietly. "What do you think?" replies the schoolmaster, neither confirming nor denying but returning responsibility for truth to the questioner himself. "We were competing with each other," admits the second boy, insight emerging through the cracks of his collapsed pretense, each telling a more impressive story than the last. The third boy sighs deeply, the sound carrying the release of a burden he hadn't known he was carrying. "We wanted to seem special and wise, but we've proven ourselves to be quite the opposite." The atmosphere in the kitchen transforms. The earlier excitement has been replaced by something more valuable, genuine self-reflection. This shift carries no heaviness of shame, but rather the lightness that comes when pretense is set aside. The schoolmaster's expression softens further, and he places a hand gently on the shoulder of the nearest boy. The beginning of wisdom, he says, is learning when to be silent. He glances at the cook, who nods almost imperceptibly as he continues his work. This good man has worked in this kitchen for 40 years. He knows more about the true taste of salt than any of us, yet he did not interrupt to correct you. The schoolmaster smiles. Sometimes the wisest response is no response at all. He guides the boys back toward the courtyard, where the younger students quickly return their attention to their abandoned calligraphy. This afternoon, the schoolmaster tells the three, you will return to the meditation hall. But this time, instead of seeking visions of ancient sages, perhaps simply count your breaths and notice what is actually present, nothing more, nothing less. His eyes twinkle with gentle humor. I suspect this humbler practice might lead to more authentic wisdom than any impressive vision. The boys bow deeply, this time with genuine respect rather than performance, and walk quietly toward the meditation hall. As they pass the younger students, there is no boasting, no dramatic tales, only the simple dignity of having learned a valuable lesson. The schoolmaster returns to his place on the veranda, watching as his students resume their practice, the peaceful rhythm of the day restored. What makes this teaching so powerful is how it addresses a universal human tendency, our eagerness to claim special understanding or experience, particularly in spiritual matters. The boys' competitive visions represent something we all recognize, the ego's attempt to appropriate spiritual practice as an achievement rather than a path of genuine discovery. We may not claim visitations from ancient sages, but we often seek validation through special experiences, insights, or states that set us apart from ordinary practitioners. The genius of the salt tasting lies in how it grounds abstract spiritual claims in immediate sensory reality. If we cannot accurately perceive and report something as simple as taste, a direct experience available to verification, how much more suspect are our claims about subtle spiritual realities? The schoolmaster doesn't deny the possibility of genuine insight or even mystical experience. He simply reveals how easily pride distorts perception, making reliable discernment impossible. Most powerful of all is the living example of the elderly cook, someone who has worked with salt daily for 40 years, yet felt no need to correct the boys' contradictory assertions. His silence embodies the lesson more eloquently than any words could have done. True knowledge often manifests not as impressive claims, but as the wisdom to remain silent when speech would only serve the ego. He knows salt so intimately that he has nothing to prove about it, a perfect demonstration of the ancient Zen saying, "Those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know." As you drift deeper towards sleep, bring gentle awareness to your own experiences of spiritual ambition. Notice how the mind seeks specialness even on the path of letting go, how easily practice can become another arena for the ego's need for recognition and distinction. Perhaps the deepest practice is not the pursuit of extraordinary experiences, but the cultivation of honest attention to what is actually present, the taste of salt, the feel of breath, the perfect ordinariness that contains all the wisdom we could ever need when perceived without the distorting lens of pride. Like the schoolmaster's salt jar, the simplest experiences offer the most reliable teaching, not because they're spiritually impressive, but precisely because they're not. When we learn to be present with what is directly before us, without embellishment or competition, we discover a silence that speaks more truthfully than any vision, no matter how golden the light that surrounds it. Feel yourself drifting deeper now, your body becoming heavier with each breath. The boundaries between wakefulness and sleep begin to blur as your mind opens to receive another ancient teaching. Let yourself be carried to a remote mountain monastery in medieval Japan, where winter has arrived with unexpected ferocity. You find yourself standing in a stone courtyard dusted with the first snow of the season. Your breath forms small clouds in the crisp air. The cold seeps through the soles of your feet, making your toes tingle. Around you, ancient cedar trees sway in the biting wind, their branches weighted with snow. The mountain peaks in the distance disappear into low-hanging clouds that promise more snowfall before nightfall. Before you stands a modest temple building. Its weathered wooden walls have withstood countless winters, the grey timbers telling silent stories of persistence through changing seasons. Smoke rises from a small chimney, hinting at warmth within. Yet even from outside, you can hear the sound of voices raised in sutra chanting, steady, rhythmic, and strangely compelling. Step now through the entrance, leaving your sandals at the door as is customary. The immediate embrace of shelter from the wind brings momentary relief, but you soon realize the interior is hardly warmer than outside. No hearth fire burns here, despite the chimney's suggestion. The smoke you saw comes from a small incense burner that offers fragrance but little heat. Your fingers remain stiff with cold, and you can still see your breath hanging in the air. As your eyes adjust to the dimmer light, you observe a remarkable scene. In the center of the room sits Master Genko, a renowned Zen teacher known throughout the province for his unconventional wisdom. He is an elderly man with a face as weathered as the temple walls, deep lines mapping decades of meditation and insight. Despite the penetrating cold, he wears only a thin robe, sitting perfectly still on his cushion, eyes half closed in meditation. His breathing is so subtle that he appears almost like a statue carved from ancient wood. Most striking of all is what surrounds him. 6 young monks kneel in a perfect circle around their master, each holding a large paper fan that they wave with slow, deliberate movements. Their faces show intense concentration, each movement precisely synchronized with the others. The gentle whooshing sound of the fans creates a rhythmic backdrop to the strange tableau. Yet this is no summer day. Their knuckles are red with cold, and occasional shivers run through their bodies despite obvious efforts to remain still. You notice an older monk standing near the entrance, observing both the master and the younger monks with careful attention. This is Jiko, the temple's head monk, and Master Genko's longest-serving student. His experienced eyes miss nothing, occasionally nodding slightly when a young monk's fanning rhythm aligns perfectly with the others. Feel his presence beside you, solid, patient, embodying decades of dedicated practice. As you watch, the temple door slides open behind you, bringing with it a swirl of snowflakes and bitter wind. A visitor enters, a merchant from the nearby town, bundled in thick winter clothes, his face red from the mountain path's exertion. He bows respectfully to Jiko, then freezes in confusion at the scene before him. The merchant's eyes widen as he takes in the younger monks fanning their master in the cold room. He leans toward Jiko, keeping his voice low but unable to hide his bewilderment. "Forgive my ignorance," he whispers, "but why are these monks fanning Master Genko? Surely on such a cold day they should be tending the hearth fire instead." His breath forms small clouds with each word. Feel Jiko's quiet amusement as he turns to the merchant. His voice is low but carries the weight of someone who has walked the path long enough to understand its seemingly strange turns. "These monks are not fanning to cool the air," he explains. "They are training their minds." He gestures toward the circle of devoted students. Master Genko teaches that true practice continues, regardless of external conditions. The merchant pulls his winter robe tighter around himself, still confused. But surely there are more practical lessons to be learned. And wouldn't the master be more comfortable with warmth rather than fanning in this bitter cold? Watch as Jiko's weathered face forms a knowing smile. "Comfort is not the purpose of their practice," he says, "nor is cooling the air." He lowers his voice further, and you lean in to hear his words. In summer, when the heat is oppressive, the young monks complain about having to fan the master for hours. They see it as merely a physical comfort for him, missing the deeper training. "What deeper training?" asks the merchant, his eyebrows raised. "The training of unbroken attention," replies Jiko, "of commitment that doesn't waver with changing circumstances." He gestures toward the youngest monk, whose arms have begun to tremble slightly from the extended effort. In summer, they think, this fanning is merely for the master's comfort. In winter, that illusion cannot stand. Now they must confront the true purpose of their practice. Feel the merchant's growing curiosity. "And what is that true purpose?" he asks. Jiko's eyes crinkle at the corners. "To continue, regardless of conditions. To maintain precise attention, whether circumstances are favorable or unfavorable." He nods toward Master Genko, who remains perfectly still at the center of the fan circle. The master could easily order a fire to be lit. He chooses not to, not from asceticism, but to create this teaching moment. Study the young monks more carefully now. Notice how, despite their discomfort, their movements remain deliberate and mindful. Each sweep of the fan is performed with complete attention, neither hurried to finish the task, nor performed mechanically without presence. Their discomfort is real. You can see it in the occasional shiver, in their reddened fingers, yet something deeper than physical comfort holds them to their practice. In summer, Jiko continues, they learn to fan despite heat and sweat and fatigue. Now in winter, they learn to fan despite cold and questioning minds that say, "This makes no sense." He turns to face the merchant directly. "Tell me, when you maintain your business accounts, do you only do so when you feel enthusiastic about the task?" The merchant chuckles softly. "Of course not. The accounts must be maintained regardless of my feelings about the work." "Exactly," says Jiko with an approving nod. "And is it not true that over time, you've developed the ability to bring your full attention to those accounts, even when you'd rather be doing something else. Yes, admits the merchant, though I never thought of it as spiritual training. Feel the warmth of Jiko's smile despite the cold room. All of life can be training if approached with the right mind, he says. These young monks are learning something that will serve them far beyond temple walls. They are discovering that their commitment need not depend on external conditions. He gestures toward the circular pattern of the fanning monks. Look how precisely they maintain the rhythm together. This requires complete presence. There is no room for thoughts about cold or comfort. As if on cue, Master Genko opens his eyes. Without a word, he makes a subtle gesture with one hand. Immediately, the monks stop fanning in perfect unison, placing their fans on the floor before them with synchronized movements. The sudden stillness feels profound after the rhythmic fanning. The master speaks, his voice surprisingly strong and clear for someone of his advanced age. Today you have begun to understand true practice, he says to the young monks. In summer, you fanned thinking it was for my comfort, and your minds were filled with resistance. In winter, you fanned knowing it could not be for comfort, and so you had to find the deeper purpose. His eyes move from face to face, making direct contact with each student. Tell me, what did you discover? The eldest of the young monks bows respectfully. That true practice continues regardless of circumstances, Master. Another monk adds that our excuses and preferences are just thoughts that arise and fall away, while our commitment can remain steady. A third monk, the one whose arms had trembled visibly during the practice, speaks more hesitantly. I discovered that when I focused completely on each movement of the fan, I forgot about the cold. It was only when my mind wandered to complaints that I suffered. Master Genko nods, a slight smile softening his austere features. Good. Now you may light the fire and prepare tea. As the monks rise to attend to these tasks, he adds, remember this lesson when spring comes, and then summer, and then autumn. The seasons change, conditions change, but true practice remains consistent through it all. He turns his attention to the merchant, acknowledging his presence with a small nod. Our visitor has brought questions from the town. Let us welcome him properly. Watch as the monastery transforms. Within minutes, a fire crackles in the hearth, gradually warming the room. The young monks move with the same mindful attention, whether sweeping the floor, stoking the fire, or preparing tea vessels. The earlier discomfort seems forgotten, replaced by focused engagement with each new task. As you observe this scene, consider the lesson hidden within this unusual practice. How often do we allow external conditions to determine our commitment? How frequently do we permit discomfort, inconvenience, or changing circumstances to pull us away from what matters most? These monks have learned that true practice transcends comfort and preference. It continues through heat and cold, through favorable and unfavorable conditions. In your own life, notice the activities you abandon when conditions become challenging. The meditation practice dropped when your schedule gets busy. The creative pursuit set aside when inspiration wanes. the relationship commitment that wavers when conflicts arise. Each represents an opportunity for incessant training, for developing an attention and commitment that transcends changing external circumstances. Like the monks fanning in winter, the deepest growth often comes precisely when conditions seem least favorable. When we continue despite the mind's protests that this makes no sense, we discover a steadiness of purpose that lies beneath the fluctuating surface of preference and comfort. This is the heart of Zen practice, not the pursuit of special experiences, but the cultivation of unwavering presence regardless of what each moment brings. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine yourself sitting among those young monks, your own fan moving in perfect rhythm with theirs. Feel the cold air, the initial resistance in your mind, and then the profound shift as you surrender to the pure experience of each moment, each movement. In that surrender, find the freedom that comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from bringing complete presence to whatever arises, pleasant or unpleasant, expected or unexpected, summer heat or winter cold. Allow your awareness to settle more deeply now, your body growing heavier with each breath. Feel yourself drifting into that perfect space between wakefulness and sleep, where ancient wisdom can speak directly to your heart. As your breathing becomes slower and more regular, journey with me now to Tang Dynasty, China, where one of the greatest Zen masters of all time is about to deliver a teaching that has puzzled and awakened seekers for over 1,000 years. You find yourself approaching a modest temple nestled at the foot of misty mountains. The morning air is crisp and clear, carrying the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Stone steps, worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims, lead up to the temple gate. Cherry trees line the path, their delicate pink blossoms occasionally drifting down in the gentle breeze. With each step, you feel a growing sense of anticipation. This is no ordinary temple, but the home of Master Joshu, whose reputation for direct, penetrating wisdom has spread throughout China. As you pass through the temple gate, notice the immediate sense of stillness that envelops you. Despite the dozen or so monks going about their morning tasks, sweeping the courtyard, tending the garden, carrying water from the well, there is a quality of focused silence that seems to absorb all unnecessary sound. Each monk moves with deliberate awareness, fully present to their simple task, creating an atmosphere of living meditation. In the center of the courtyard sits a stone well, its rim polished by countless hands over the years. Beside it stands an elderly monk, so slight of build he almost seems to dissolve into the morning light. This is Joshu, now in his 80s, with wispy white beard and eyebrows that give him an otherworldly appearance. Despite his advanced age, he stands straight as a pine, his movements economical yet flowing with natural grace. His eyes, clear and bright, miss nothing as he watches a younger monk approach with a wooden bucket. This younger monk, you sense, is different from the others. Where they move with quiet certainty, his steps betray subtle hesitation. His face shows the strain of internal questioning, brows slightly furrowed, even as he performs his simple morning task of drawing water. Feel the tension he carries, not physical, but existential, the weight of unanswered questions that all serious spiritual seekers encounter on their path. As he reaches the well, he bows respectfully to Master Joshu. "Master, may I ask a question that has been troubling me?" His voice is low, meant only for Joshu's ears, yet in the temple's stillness, you can hear each word clearly. Joshu nods once, his eyes meeting the young monk's with startling directness. No word is spoken, but permission is clearly granted. The young monk hesitates, searching for the right words. "Master, I have been studying the sutras diligently. They speak of emptiness, of no self, of letting go of all attachments." He gestures to his simple robes, his shaved head, the few possessions a monk is allowed. "I have renounced my family name, given away my possessions, followed all the precepts. I carry nothing, yet still I feel heavily burdened." He looks down at his empty hands, then back to Joshu, with naked sincerity in his eyes. "Master, please tell me, who am I when I carry nothing? What remains when everything is let go?" Feel the weight of this question, not merely intellectual, but asked from the core of human existence. Who are we beneath our names, possessions, roles, and stories? What remains when all else is stripped away? It is the question that has drawn seekers to spiritual paths throughout history, across all traditions. The courtyard grows even more still, as if the very stones and trees are listening for Joshu's response. Other monks pause in their tasks, though they pretend not to be eavesdropping. Even the birds seem to hold their songs. In this pregnant silence, Joshu looks at the young monk with eyes that seem to see through all pretense, all concepts, all the accumulated layers of thinking that separate us from direct experience. "Put it down," Joshu says simply. The young monk looks confused. He turns his empty palms upward. "But Master, I am carrying nothing. What is there to put down?" Joshu's gaze doesn't waver. "Then carry it." Watch as the young monk's expression shifts from confusion to shock, then to a kind of stunned recognition. Something in Joshu's seemingly contradictory response has bypassed his intellectual understanding and touched something deeper. His hands, still extended with palms upward, begin to tremble slightly. Tears form in his eyes, though he does not seem sad. Rather, he appears like someone who has suddenly recognized an old friend after years of separation. He bows deeply to Joshu, touching his forehead to the ground in profound gratitude. When he rises, his face has changed. The furrow between his brows has smoothed, and his eyes hold a clarity that wasn't there moments before. Without another word, he picks up his bucket, draws water from the well, and continues with his morning duties, yet now his movements flow with a natural ease that mirrors Joshu's own. As the young monk departs, an older monk, who has served as Joshu's attendant for many years, approaches. He too bows respectfully. "Master, forgive my ignorance, but I do not understand the teaching you just gave." The monk was carrying nothing. What did you mean by telling him to put it down, and then to carry it? Feel the gentle amusement in Joshu's expression as he turns to his longtime attendant. He was carrying the heaviest burden of all, Joshu says. The idea of carrying nothing. The attendant's eyes widen slightly as understanding dawns. Ah, I see. He was attached to his detachment. He was proud of his emptiness. Joshu nods, his eyes twinkling. Even nothing, when clung to, becomes something. He runs his hand along the stone rim of the well. When you truly carry nothing, you don't need to think about carrying nothing. When you truly let go, you don't need to congratulate yourself for letting go. He looks up at the cherry blossoms drifting down. The trees don't try to let go of their blossoms. They simply allow the natural unfolding. The attendant monk smiles and bows again. Thank you, Master. Your teaching is as clear as this morning's sky. He hesitates, then adds with a mischievous glint in his eye, but now I find myself proud of understanding. What should I do with this new burden? Joshu laughs, a bright, spontaneous sound that seems to come from his entire being. Put it down, he says. Or carry it. What does it matter? Just don't stand around all day talking about it when there's water to be carried and floors to be swept. With that, he turns and walks toward the meditation hall, still chuckling to himself. As you observe this scene, feel the profound teaching hidden within this seemingly simple exchange. How often do we take pride in our spiritual accomplishments? How subtly we cling to our ideas of non-attachment, our concepts of emptiness, our identity as someone who has let go. Yet these very notions become new burdens, new forms of carrying, new ways of solidifying a sense of self, the very thing we were trying to release. Joshu's brilliance lies in exposing this deep paradox with just 4 words: put it down, and then carry it. With this seemingly contradictory instruction, he cuts through the young monk's conceptual understanding to reveal something more fundamental. When we truly let go, we don't need to think about having let go. When we are genuinely empty, we don't need to cling to our emptiness. We simply live each moment as it comes, carrying what needs to be carried, putting down what needs to be put down, without excessive self-consciousness about the process. In your own life, notice how spiritual concepts and practices can become new forms of baggage. The meditation technique you pride yourself on mastering, the insights you replay in your mind, thinking, I got it. The identity of being mindful or spiritual that you carefully cultivate. Each represents a subtle form of carrying, a new attachment that can be as binding as the worldly attachments you sought to transcend. True freedom, Joshu suggests, isn't found in perfecting emptiness or mastering non-attachment as concepts. It's found in the simple, direct experience of this moment, carrying water when water needs carrying, putting down burdens when they're no longer needed, all without the additional layer of thinking about what you're doing or what it means about you. Like the cherry tree releasing its blossoms without pride or regret, your true nature unfolds most perfectly when you're not standing apart from it, observing and judging. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine yourself as that young monk standing before Joshu with empty hands yet a burdened mind. Feel what it might be like to suddenly recognize that even your cherished spiritual understanding, your ideas about emptiness, your concept of having let go, has become something you're carrying. And in that recognition, experience the possibility of a deeper letting go, not as a new accomplishment to be proud of, but as the natural unfolding of who you already are, like blossoms falling when their time has come. As you continue to drift deeper into this peaceful state, allow your mind to release any remaining tension. With each breath, you're sinking further into relaxation, your body becoming heavier, your thoughts growing quieter. Now, travel with me to 19th century Japan, to a temple where an unusual master teaches through his every action, even when no words are spoken. You find yourself walking along a shaded mountain path on a sweltering summer day. The cicadas' persistent chorus fills the air, their sound rising and falling like waves of heat. Feel the warm breeze against your skin, carrying the sweet scent of summer grasses and distant rain. Sweat beads on your forehead and trickles down your back as you climb the stone steps leading to the temple. Around you, maple trees provide occasional patches of shade, their green leaves motionless in the still afternoon air. As you approach the temple entrance, you notice two young monks sitting on the wooden veranda. They wear simple cotton robes appropriate for the season, their sleeves rolled up against the heat. Small fans move listlessly in their hands, creating more gesture than breeze. Their faces glisten with perspiration as they quietly discuss something that seems to puzzle them both. Drawing closer, you overhear fragments of their conversation. "Even today, in this heat," one says, shaking his head in disbelief. "All 9 layers," replies the other, "without fail, regardless of the season." They pause as they notice your presence, offering respectful nods before returning to their hushed discussion. Step now through the temple gate into a small courtyard paved with smooth stones. The afternoon sun has turned this space into a crucible, heat radiating from every surface. Even the stone lanterns and carefully pruned shrubs seem to wilt under the oppressive temperature. Yet despite this furnace-like atmosphere, you notice something extraordinary happening in the center of the courtyard. There stands Master Kasan, renowned throughout the region for his strict adherence to traditional practices. Unlike the younger monks in their seasonal attire, Kasan is dressed in the full formal robes of a Zen master, 9 layers of heavy silk brocade, complete with the ceremonial outer robe reserved for official temple functions. The elaborate black hat of his office sits squarely on his head, its weight evident in his deliberate posture. This formal attire would be appropriate for receiving government officials or conducting major ceremonies, but on this blistering summer afternoon, there appears to be no special occasion whatsoever. Most striking of all is what this formal dress is costing him. Sweat pours freely down Kasan's face, soaking the collar of his innermost robe. The outer layers of silk are visibly dampened at the shoulders and chest. His face has the deep flush of someone enduring significant physical strain. Yet his expression remains composed, his movements deliberate and dignified as he inspects the temple gardens, pausing occasionally to adjust a stone or remove a weed with precise, unhurried gestures. An elderly monk approaches from a nearby building, moving with the careful steps of advanced age. This is Sotan, who has served as the temple's head monk for over 3 decades. His simple summer robe hangs loosely on his thin frame, yet he carries himself with natural dignity that requires no formal attire. He bows to Master Kasan, then gestures toward the temple's meditation hall. "Master, the afternoon instruction period will begin shortly," he says, his voice carrying the slight quaver of elderly years. "Perhaps today, given the exceptional heat, you might consider more comfortable attire. The students would surely understand." Kasan turns to his old friend, his face serious but not stern. Beads of sweat continue to trace paths down his temples and cheeks. "Thank you for your concern, Sotan," he replies. "But I will continue as always." Sotan nods, unsurprised by the response. This is clearly a conversation they have had many times before. He bows again and begins to turn away, then pauses. "The new students are asking questions," he says quietly. "They wonder why you insist on full ceremonial robes, even on days when no ceremonies are conducted and no visitors are expected." A subtle smile appears at the corners of Kasan's mouth. "And what do you tell them?" "I tell them to observe carefully and find the answer in their own practice," replies Sotan. "But I confess, even after 30 years, I sometimes wonder myself about the necessity of such formality in private moments. Feel the weight of this honest exchange between 2 men who have dedicated their lives to the same path, yet approach it differently." Kasan does not immediately respond. Instead, he reaches up to adjust his ceremonial hat, which has slipped slightly from the moisture of his perspiration. His hands, you notice, move with the same careful precision he would use in a formal ceremony before distinguished guests. The distinction between public and private is where many go astray, Kasan finally says. When we believe we can be one person before others and another when alone, we create division where there should be wholeness. He gestures to his elaborate robes. These are not for show, though they may serve that purpose as well. They are a constant reminder of the dignity of the Dharma I have vowed to uphold. Sotan nods thoughtfully. Yet Buddha himself adopted simple robes, abandoning royal garments. And in doing so, he was completely authentic to his path, responds Kasan without hesitation. I do not wear these robes because tradition demands it, though tradition does indeed demand it. I wear them because they help me remember who I have chosen to be, moment by moment. He smiles fully now, despite the rivulets of sweat continuing to course down his face. Besides, discomfort is an excellent teacher. It quickly reveals any attachment to personal comfort that might remain. A bell sounds from the meditation hall, its clear tone cutting through the heavy summer air. With a final bow to each other, the 2 elderly monks begin walking toward the sound. You notice that despite his many heavy layers, Kasan moves with remarkable fluidity, as if the weight of the robes has become so familiar that it is no longer separate from his own body. Sotan walks beside him, his simpler attire no less dignified in its own way. As they pass, the 2 young monks Still sitting on the veranda, Kasan pauses. When the rain falls, does it fall only on formal occasions? He asks them. When the sun rises, does it rise only for important events? Nature maintains its dignity without regard for who is watching. With that, he continues toward the meditation hall, leaving the young monks looking after him with new understanding dawning in their eyes. Later that evening, as twilight brings the first hint of relief from the day's heat, you observe a small group of students gathered in the garden. They speak in hushed tones about their master's unusual practice. "I always thought the ceremonial robes were just for impressing visitors," one young monk admits. But today there were no visitors, and still he wore all 9 layers in this terrible heat. An older student nods thoughtfully. "Before I came to this temple, I studied with 3 other masters. Each was different, one extremely strict in public, but casual in private, another casual at all times, a third inconsistent from day to day." He looks toward the meditation hall where Kasan can be seen through an open door, still in his formal attire despite the day's end. But Master Kasan is the same person at all times, whether alone or before 1,000 people. "But why put himself through such discomfort?" asks the youngest student. "Surely Buddha's teaching doesn't require unnecessary suffering." The older student smiles. "Have you noticed that despite the heat and the heavy robes, the master never complains, never mentions his discomfort, never draws attention to his sweat or seeks sympathy?" He gestures toward Kasan's distant figure. "The robes are heavy, yes, but he carries them lightly. That is the true teaching." As darkness falls and lanterns are lit around the temple grounds, you find yourself reflecting on Kasan's uncommon dedication. His practice goes beyond mere rule following or tradition for tradition's sake. There is something profound in his refusal to distinguish between public and private moments, in his commitment to embodying his role completely, rather than putting it on and taking it off like a costume. The sweat that soaks his ceremonial robes becomes not a sign of foolish stubbornness, but a testament to extraordinary integrity. This story invites us to examine the consistency of our own practice. How often do we present one face to the world and another in private? How frequently do we compromise our deepest values when no one is watching? How readily do we abandon our commitments when they become uncomfortable or inconvenient? Kasan's sweat-soaked robes challenge us to consider what it might mean to live with complete authenticity, not performing for others, but fully embodying our chosen path in every moment. The formality of Kasan's practice might seem extreme, even unnecessary. Yet there is profound wisdom in his refusal to divide life into important moments that deserve our full attention and ordinary moments where we can relax our awareness. Through his consistent commitment, regardless of physical comfort or who might be watching, he demonstrates that the deepest practice is not a part-time endeavor, but a continuous unfolding of our truest self. Every moment becomes sacred when approached with such unwavering presence. As you drift deeper into relaxation, consider where in your own life you might wear different robes, depending on who is watching. Notice the subtle divisions between your public and private selves, the values you espouse, and those you actually live by when no one is looking. Kasan's lesson isn't about maintaining rigid formality or unnecessary discomfort, but about the profound freedom that comes from undivided authenticity, from being wholly yourself in every circumstance, carrying your commitments with the same care, whether in solitude or before the world. Your eyelids grow heavier as you drift further from daily concerns, your body settling into that perfect stillness where ancient wisdom can reach beyond intellect into the marrow of experience. Travel with me now through the veils of time to a Japanese countryside school, where 3 young monks are about to discover the profound gap between spiritual ambition and authentic insight. Morning sunlight spills across a simple courtyard, turning dew-dampened stones to scattered jewels. The fragrance of plum blossoms mingles with the earthy scent of fresh ink being ground on stone, creating an atmosphere that seems suspended between heaven and earth. Birds call to one another from nearby trees, their songs punctuated by the rhythmic tapping of a wooden mallet striking a meditation bell in the distance. Each sound emerges from silence and returns to silence, a natural demonstration of the teaching that will soon unfold. In the center of this tranquil scene stands a modest school building, not a grand temple or formal monastery, but a place where local children receive education from a teacher who seamlessly integrates academic instruction with spiritual wisdom. The building breathes with age and constancy, its wooden beams darkened by decades of incense smoke, its tatami mats worn smooth by countless small feet, learning to navigate both written characters and life's deeper meanings. On the veranda sits the schoolmaster, a middle-aged man whose unpretentious appearance gives no obvious indication of his profound insight. He wears neither elaborate robes nor religious insignia, just the simple attire of a country teacher. Yet something in his presence suggests uncommon depth, the way he moves with unrushed precision, the quality of attention he brings to each child's efforts, the subtle humor that occasionally lights his eyes when a student discovers something for themselves. His hands, calloused from practical work yet gentle in guidance, move methodically along a line of calligraphy as he prepares the day's lesson. Around him, younger children practice brush strokes with intense concentration, their small faces serious with effort as they attempt to capture not just the form but the spirit of each character. Several occasionally glance up from their practice, seeking the teacher's nod of approval or subtle correction. The relationship between master and students feels neither rigidly hierarchical nor carelessly casual, but balanced in that perfect middle ground where true learning thrives. This atmosphere of focused yet relaxed attention gives the scene a quality of timelessness, as if this moment of learning has always existed and will continue long after these particular participants have departed. The peaceful rhythm of the morning shatters as 3 older boys, perhaps 14 or 15 years old, burst into the courtyard, their faces flushed with excitement that seems wildly out of place in this contemplative setting. These are the schoolmaster's senior students, who should have been practicing meditation in the small temple hall attached to the school grounds. Their unexpected return and obvious agitation immediately disrupts the younger children's concentration. Small heads turn from carefully formed characters to witness this unusual interruption, brushstrokes forgotten as the drama unfolds. The tallest boy, clearly the unofficial leader of the trio, hurries toward the schoolmaster with barely contained excitement. His bow, normally a gesture of mindful respect, is performed with such hasty impatience that it becomes almost a parody of the form. "Teacher, teacher," he calls, his voice far louder than appropriate for the setting. The most extraordinary thing has happened during our meditation. You won't believe what we experienced. Watch the schoolmaster's response, how he neither encourages this disruption through eager attention, nor discourages it through obvious disapproval. His face registers neither annoyance at the interrupted lesson, nor excitement at the boys' news. He simply turns toward them with complete presence, creating a space where whatever unfolds can be met with equanimity. "What has brought you here in such a state?" he asks, his voice modulated to gentle the excited energy the boys have introduced into the contemplative morning. The second boy steps forward, words tumbling over each other, in his eagerness to share. "We were meditating as you instructed, focusing on the lives of the ancient sages as you taught us last week." His hands gesture animatedly, physicalizing the mental excitement he cannot contain. Then something miraculous happened. I found myself transported in my mind to the presence of Confucius himself. It was as if I traveled through time. He spoke to me directly, sharing wisdom that isn't written in any of the texts we've studied. Feel the ripple of awe that passes through the younger students at this extraordinary claim. Their brushes lie forgotten as wide eyes move between the breathless storyteller and their teacher, seeking confirmation that such miraculous communication is indeed possible. A few whisper behind cupped hands, their expressions combining wonder with the first seeds of skepticism that mark developing discernment. The third boy, not to be outdone, quickly adds his own supernatural encounter. "That's nothing compared to my experience," he interjects, stepping slightly in front of his companion. "Lao Tzu himself appeared before me, revealing secret teachings about the Tao that have never been written down. He showed me visions of perfect harmony between heaven and earth, and explained the true meaning of the uncarved block." As he speaks, his chest visibly expands, with the importance of being selected for such rarefied wisdom. The first boy, clearly unwilling to be overshadowed, raises his voice to reclaim attention. "But I had the most profound experience of all," he announces, positioning himself center stage. "Buddha himself appeared before me, surrounded by golden light. He told me I have a special destiny and revealed insights that will revolutionize our understanding of his teachings." His expression conveys absolute certainty in the reality of this vision, along with unmistakable pride at being singled out for such divine attention. Study the schoolmaster's face during these increasingly competitive spiritual claims. Where others might show skepticism, irritation, or even angry dismissal of such obvious fabrications, his expression reveals only patient attention. No judgment creases his brow, no sarcasm tightens his mouth. He simply observes, creating through his complete presence a mirror in which the young monks might eventually see themselves clearly. The younger students have now completely abandoned their calligraphy practice, all eyes moving between the bold storytellers and their unusually quiet teacher. The morning sounds continue unchanged. Birds call, insects hum. The distant temple bell marks time's passage, creating a natural backdrop of constancy against which this human drama of ambition and exaggeration plays out. After what feels like a very long moment of silence, a space the schoolmaster neither rushes to fill nor awkwardly extends, he finally speaks. "How remarkable," he says simply, his tone neither endorsing nor dismissing these extraordinary claims. "Each of you has had such a vision." He rises unhurriedly from his seated position, brushing his simple robe with hands that have known both scholarly and physical labor. "Please, come with me. I wish to show you something before we discuss these experiences further." The three boys exchange glances, their earlier bravado slightly dented by this unexpected response. They had clearly anticipated either impressed amazement or perhaps skeptical questioning, reactions they had prepared for with further elaborate details. This calm redirection catches them off balance. Nevertheless, they follow the schoolmaster as he walks toward the small kitchen at the far end of the courtyard, their earlier excitement now tinged with puzzlement. Inside the modest kitchen, an elderly cook prepares the midday meal with the same meditative attention the schoolmaster brings to teaching. His gnarled hands move with surprising grace as he slices vegetables harvested that morning from the school garden. Rice steams in a large pot, filling the air with its clean, comforting aroma. The cook acknowledges the schoolmaster with a slight nod, but continues his work without interruption, embodying the principle that even the most mundane tasks contain opportunities for complete presence. The schoolmaster approaches a shelf where various containers hold kitchen staples. With deliberate movements that invite full attention, he reaches for a small ceramic jar, removes its lid, and extends it toward the three boys. "Please," he says, "each of you taste this, and tell me what you think." Observe how this simple request immediately alters the atmosphere. The boys look at each other in confusion, then at the jar containing what appears to be ordinary salt. This mundane substance seems worlds away from the exalted spiritual visions they were describing moments before. The jarring shift from transcendent claims to this prosaic reality creates a moment of cognitive dissonance that the schoolmaster allows to hang in the air, neither explaining nor apologizing for this unexpected turn. The first boy, perhaps wanting to maintain his leadership position, steps forward. He wets his finger, dips it into the jar, and brings a small amount to his mouth. His face immediately contorts in an expression of disgust that seems impossible to fake. "Ugh!" he exclaims, unable to maintain any semblance of dignity. "This is terribly bitter. It's not salt at all. It must be some kind of medicine or poison." The second boy, now more cautious after his friend's reaction, takes only the tiniest taste. His expression registers surprise rather than disgust. "No, it's not bitter," he contradicts with the certainty of direct experience. "It's intensely sour, like unripe plums or vinegar." The third boy, perhaps hoping to demonstrate superior discernment, tastes the substance and nods with sage importance. "You're both wrong," he declares with authority. "It's neither bitter nor sour, but unbearably salty, much more concentrated than what we normally use in cooking." Feel the tension building in this simple kitchen as the three boys realize they have given completely contradictory answers about something as basic and verifiable as the taste of a common substance. The elderly cook continues his vegetable preparation, but his movements have slowed, and you sense he is listening carefully to this exchange. The schoolmaster remains silent, his gentle eyes moving from face to face as the boys begin to argue with each other, their former unity in spiritual one-upmanship dissolving into mutual accusations. How can you possibly say it's sour? Your sense of taste must be completely defective, the first boy insists to the second. And how could you mistake salt for something bitter? The third challenges the first, his tone growing increasingly defensive. Listen to how their voices rise, their carefully constructed personas of spiritual advancement crumbling in the face of this simple disagreement about direct sensory experience. The gulf between their claimed transcendent visions and their inability to agree on the basic taste of a common substance grows increasingly apparent, not through the schoolmaster's argument, but through their own revealed confusion. As their debate becomes more heated, the schoolmaster gently places the jar back on the shelf and clears his throat softly. The boys fall silent immediately, suddenly aware of how their behavior has changed. The contrast between their earlier claims of mystical communion with ancient sages and their current bickering over table salt creates a moment of stark revelation that no lecture could have accomplished. "Interesting," says the schoolmaster, his voice neither stern nor mocking but clear as still water. "The three of you cannot agree on the taste of a simple substance that you have all experienced directly, just now, with your own tongues." He allows this observation to settle before continuing. "Yet you expect me to believe that you have each accurately perceived and can now report the exact words and teachings of ancient sages who lived hundreds or thousands of years ago." The question hangs in the air like incense smoke, not accusatory but revelatory, illuminating without burning. Watch understanding dawn on the boys' faces, like sunrise over distant mountains, gradual yet inevitable. Embarrassment colors their cheeks as they realize the trap they have set for themselves. The first boy looks down at his feet. The second stares at the jar of salt, as if seeing it for the first time, and the third begins to stammer an explanation before falling into defeated silence. The elderly cook, without looking up from his vegetable chopping, allows himself the smallest of smiles, not at the boy's discomfort, but at the elegant precision of the teaching unfolding before him. His weathered hands maintain their rhythm, embodying the constancy that comes from decades of practice without pretense. The jar contains ordinary table salt, something you encounter every day. The schoolmaster continues, his tone neither angry nor mocking, but clear as mountain air. Yet pride led each of you to insist on a different experience, rather than simply acknowledging what was actually there. He gestures toward the temple hall, where they should have been meditating. How much more might pride distort your perception of profound spiritual matters? The first boy, gathering his courage, raises his head to meet his teacher's gaze. The defensive pride has drained from his face, replaced by genuine questioning. "We didn't really see the ancient sages, did we?" he asks quietly. "What do you think?" replies the schoolmaster, neither confirming nor denying but returning responsibility for truth to the questioner himself. "We were competing with each other, admits the second boy, insight emerging through the cracks of his collapsed pretense, each telling a more impressive story than the last. The third boy sighs deeply, the sound carrying the release of a burden he hadn't known he was carrying. We wanted to seem special and wise, but we've proven ourselves to be quite the opposite. The atmosphere in the kitchen transforms. The earlier excitement has been replaced by something more valuable, genuine self-reflection. This shift carries no heaviness of shame, but rather the lightness that comes when pretense is set aside. The schoolmaster's expression softens further, and he places a hand gently on the shoulder of the nearest boy. The beginning of wisdom, he says, is learning when to be silent. He glances at the cook, who nods almost imperceptibly as he continues his work. This good man has worked in this kitchen for 40 years. He knows more about the true taste of salt than any of us, yet he did not interrupt to correct you. The schoolmaster smiles. Sometimes the wisest response is no response at all. He guides the boys back toward the courtyard, where the younger students quickly return their attention to their abandoned calligraphy. This afternoon, the schoolmaster tells the three, you will return to the meditation hall. But this time, instead of seeking visions of ancient sages, perhaps simply count your breaths and notice what is actually present. Nothing more, nothing less. His eyes twinkle with gentle humor. I suspect this humbler practice might lead to more authentic wisdom than any impressive vision. The boys bow deeply, this time with genuine respect rather than performance, and walk quietly toward the meditation hall. As they pass the younger students, there is no boasting, no dramatic tales, only the simple dignity of having learned a valuable lesson. The schoolmaster returns to his place on the veranda, watching as his students resume their practice, the peaceful rhythm of the day restored. What makes this teaching so powerful is how it addresses a universal human tendency, our eagerness to claim special understanding or experience, particularly in spiritual matters. The boys' competitive visions represent something we all recognize, the ego's attempt to appropriate spiritual practice as an achievement rather than a path of genuine discovery. We may not claim visitations from ancient sages, but we often seek validation through special experiences, insights, or states that set us apart from ordinary practitioners. The genius of the salt tasting lies in how it grounds abstract spiritual claims in immediate sensory reality. If we cannot accurately perceive and report something as simple as taste, a direct experience available to verification, how much more suspect are our claims about subtle spiritual realities? The schoolmaster doesn't deny the possibility of genuine insight or even mystical experience. He simply reveals how easily pride distorts perception, making reliable discernment impossible. Most powerful of all is the living example of the elderly cook, someone who has worked with salt daily for 40 years, yet felt no need to correct the boy's contradictory assertions. His silence embodies the lesson more eloquently than any words could have done. True knowledge often manifests not as impressive claims, but as the wisdom to remain silent when speech would only serve the ego. He knows salt so intimately that he has nothing to prove about it, a perfect demonstration of the ancient Zen saying, "Those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know." As you drift deeper towards sleep, bring gentle awareness to your own experiences of spiritual ambition. Notice how the mind seeks specialness even on the path of letting go, how easily practice can become another arena for the ego's need for recognition and distinction. Perhaps the deepest practice is not the pursuit of extraordinary experiences, but the cultivation of honest attention to what is actually present, the taste of salt, the feel of breath, the perfect ordinariness that contains all the wisdom we could ever need when perceived without the distorting lens of pride. Like the schoolmaster's salt jar, the simplest experiences offer the most reliable teaching, not because they're spiritually impressive, but precisely because they're not. When we learn to be present with what is directly before us, without embellishment or competition, we discover a silence that speaks more truthfully than any vision, no matter how golden the light that surrounds it. To compare your spiritual path with others, or to value extraordinary insights over simple presence. Like the taste of salt, direct, immediate, and requiring no elaboration, the most profound truths are often the simplest, available in every moment, when we approach them with honest attention, rather than seeking to impress others or ourselves. Allow yourself to sink even deeper into this peaceful state, your body growing heavier, your mind more receptive to the ancient wisdom within these stories. With each breath, you're drifting further into this twilight realm between wakefulness and sleep. Journey with me now to a mountain temple in medieval Japan, where the boundary between discipline and compassion is about to be explored in the darkest hour of night. You find yourself standing in a temple courtyard under a sky filled with stars. The moon, nearly full, casts silver light across the wooden buildings, creating sharp shadows that seem alive with mystery. The mountain air is crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl calls, a lone voice in the profound silence that blankets the sleeping temple. It is the hour when the night is deepest, when most souls are lost in dreams, but not everyone here is asleep. Through the shadows, you notice movement. A young monk emerges cautiously from the dormitory building. He glances around furtively, then moves with practiced stealth toward the eastern wall. His face, illuminated briefly by moonlight, shows both excitement and apprehension. This is Dosan, one of the younger members of this Zen community, known for his earnest practice but also for his restless spirit. Watch as he approaches the wall and retrieves a tall wooden stool hidden behind a storage shed. With swift, silent movements, he positions it against the wall, testing its stability before beginning to climb. His actions reveal that this is not his first such midnight excursion. Within moments, he has scaled the wall and disappeared over its edge, the soft thud of his landing barely audible in the night stillness. The temple returns to silence, but only briefly. From another building, smaller and set apart from the others, a door slides open with deliberate slowness. An elderly figure emerges, moving with the unhurried grace of deep experience. This is Master Sengai, the temple's abbot, renowned throughout the province for both his wisdom and his unconventional teaching methods. In the moonlight, you can see that despite his advanced age, Sengai's movements are fluid and precise. His eyes, bright and alert despite the late hour, immediately take in the scene: the stool against the wall, the disturbed gravel where Dosan landed on the other side. Unlike many senior teachers who might delegate discipline to junior monks, Sengai approaches the wall himself. With a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth, he removes the stool, places it out of sight, and then does something unexpected. He positions himself exactly where the stool had been, standing perfectly still against the wall. Time passes. The moon continues its arc across the star-filled sky, the temple buildings casting gradually shifting shadows across the courtyard. An hour, perhaps two, goes by before you hear soft footsteps approaching from the other side of the wall. Dosan has returned from whatever nighttime adventure called him from his proper place. You hear a barely audible grunt as the young monk leaps to grasp the top of the wall, pulling himself up with the strength of regular physical training. As he perches momentarily on the wall's edge, his expression is one of satisfied relief. He has once again managed his secret departure and return without detection. Then, looking down to where he expects to find his hidden stool, his face transforms into pure shock. In the stool's place stands Master Sengai, looking up at him with those penetrating eyes that seem to miss nothing. The young monk freezes, caught literally between the outside world and the temple, unable to retreat or advance. His face drains of color, even in the silvery moonlight. This is the moment he has feared: discovery, shame, perhaps expulsion from the community he has, despite his wandering ways, come to cherish. Feel the weight of this tense silence, the young monk trapped atop the wall, the elderly master standing calmly below, neither speaking as the night holds its breath around them. Dosan's mind must be racing with explanations, excuses, apologies, yet before he can voice any of them, Master Sengai does something completely unexpected. "It is very chilly in the early morning," Sengai says quietly, his voice carrying easily in the night stillness. "Be careful not to catch cold yourself." With that simple statement, neither accusation nor sermon, Sengai turns and walks back toward his quarters, leaving the stunned young monk still perched atop the wall. No punishment is announced, no lecture delivered, no demand for explanation or apology. Just that single expression of concern for the young man's well-being. After a moment of frozen disbelief, Dosan jumps down into the courtyard, landing more heavily than before, no longer concerned with stealth. His face reveals a complex mixture of emotions: relief at escaping immediate punishment, confusion at the master's unexpected response, and the first dawning of a deeper understanding. He stands there for several long moments, looking in the direction where Sengai has disappeared, then slowly makes his way back to the dormitory, his footsteps much heavier than during his earlier departure. The next evening, as twilight deepens into night, you notice Dosan sitting in meditation on the veranda of the main hall, long after the other monks have retired. His face shows the marks of someone who has slept little but thought much. As the first stars appear in the darkening sky, Master Sengai emerges from his quarters and, noticing the solitary figure, approaches without hurry. No words are exchanged as the elderly teacher sits beside his troubled student. Finally, Dosan breaks the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "Master, I have broken the temple rules. I have left without permission many times to visit the town. Why did you not punish me?" Feel the genuine confusion in his question, how sometimes compassion can be more destabilizing than harsh discipline when we believe we deserve punishment. Sengai doesn't immediately answer, allowing the question to hang in the evening air. "Tell me," he finally says, "what did you seek in the town that you could not find within these walls?" Dosan looks down at his hands. Excitement, stories, music, the company of people who laugh easily and speak of things beyond scripture and meditation. He hesitates, then adds more softly, "Freedom from the constant awareness of my own limitations." Sengai nods, unsurprised by this honest confession. "And did you find what you were seeking?" "For a few hours, yes," admits Dosan. "But it never lasted. I always had to return, and then I felt even more confined than before." He finally looks directly at his teacher. "Last night, when I saw you standing there instead of my stool, I thought, this is the end of my time here. I was terrified, yet also almost relieved that I would no longer need to live this double life." "And now?" asks Sengai simply. "Now I am more confused than ever," confesses Dosan. "Your kindness feels heavier than any punishment. I don't understand why you would show concern for my health when I have shown such disrespect for your teachings." A gentle smile forms on Sengai's weathered face. "The rules of this temple are not my teachings. They are merely scaffolding to support the real work." He gestures toward the wall that Dosan had climbed the previous night. "That wall does not exist to keep you in, but to ask a question. What do you truly want? Each time you climb it, you are answering that question, whether you realize it or not." Experience the profound shift occurring within the young monk as these words penetrate deeper than any reprimand could have. His breathing changes, becoming less constrained, and his shoulders relax as if setting down a heavy burden. "I've been answering the question wrongly," he says slowly, "believing that freedom lay outside rather than within." Sengai neither confirms nor denies this realization, allowing the young monk to find his own truth. "Tonight the gate stands open," he says instead, gesturing toward the main entrance. "You may leave through it if you wish, with no need for midnight climbing. Or you may stay. Either way, let your choice be made with full awareness rather than divided mind." With that, the master rises and returns to his quarters, leaving Dosan alone with a decision far more meaningful than whether to stay or go, the decision to live with integrity rather than internal division. As night fully embraces the temple, you observe Dosan rise from the veranda and walk, not toward the open gate, but toward the meditation hall, where he enters and assumes the posture of zazen. His face now holds a new quality, not the forced concentration of one trying to escape himself through discipline, but the natural attention of someone who has glimpsed a more authentic kind of freedom. The midnight excursions never resume, not because the wall has become higher, but because the questions that drove them have been transformed through compassionate understanding rather than rigid enforcement. This story reveals the subtle wisdom of Sengai's approach to discipline. Rather than meeting transgression with punishment, which often only strengthens resistance, he created space for genuine self-reflection. His unexpected compassion forced Dozan to confront the deeper questions beneath his behavior. Instead of externally imposing rules, Sengai invited the young monk to discover his own authentic commitment. In our own lives, we often create similar divisions, presenting one face to the world while secretly pursuing desires that conflict with our stated values. We climb walls of our own making, seeking freedom or fulfillment in places that ultimately cannot provide it. Like Dosan, we may find that what we're truly seeking is not outside ourselves, but in the integrity that comes from aligning our actions with our deepest values. As you drift deeper into relaxation, consider where you might be living with such division, where you might be climbing walls at midnight rather than walking through the open gate of honest self-examination. Notice how exhausting this double life can be, and how much energy is freed when we bring our hidden longings into the light of awareness. The most profound freedom, this story suggests, comes not from escaping our commitments, but from engaging them with our whole being, no longer divided against ourselves, but present and integrated in each choice we make. Your eyelids grow heavier with each passing moment, your breathing finding its own natural rhythm as you drift into that liminal space where ancient wisdom speaks most clearly. The sound of my voice becomes a bridge carrying you into early autumn in the mountains of medieval Japan, where a desperate young monk is about to discover that his greatest obstacle lies in his own determination. Stone steps, worn smooth by centuries of seekers, wind between maple trees just beginning their transformation. A few early leaves, brilliant red against green, spiral down in the morning breeze, landing on the path before you. Your senses awaken to the mingled scents of pine resin, freshly turned earth, and wood smoke drifting from the temple kitchen. The air carries that particular autumn quality, neither the oppressive heat of summer nor the sharp bite of winter, but the perfect balance between extremes, as if nature herself were demonstrating the middle path. Beyond a simple wooden gate stands a garden where temple monks cultivate vegetables and medicinal herbs. Their hands move with unhurried precision, fully present to the work of preparing soil for winter planting. Nearby stands a modest building set apart from the main temple hall, a space both humble and dignified, like its occupant. Slide open the paper door just enough to peer inside, where morning light streams through east-facing windows, illuminating dancing dust particles and falling across a worn writing desk. Master Sengai kneels before this desk, his elderly frame still maintaining perfect posture without visible effort. Though his hair has long since turned white, his movements possess a fluid vitality that many younger monks envy. Spread before him are the tools of his other mastery: brush, inkstone, and rice paper, arranged with casual precision. His calligraphy and ink paintings are treasured throughout the province, not for technical perfection, but for the way they somehow capture the very essence of Zen understanding in a single brush stroke. The conversation already in progress draws your attention to the second figure in the room, a young monk named Taiko, whose intense expression reveals both sincere dedication and profound inner turmoil. His hands grip his knees with white-knuckle intensity. His entire body, a study in barely contained desperation. Even his meditation posture, technically correct, betrays the strain of someone forcing himself toward enlightenment through sheer determination. "Master," he pleads, his voice tight with frustration. "I have been practicing for 3 years without missing a single day. I sit in meditation from the midnight hour until sunset, eating only once at midday. I have memorized the sutras down to the last character and recite them during every waking moment, not devoted to zazen." His words tumble out with the urgency of someone drowning, desperate for rescue. "I have even taken to sleeping sitting upright against the wall so that awareness never fully ceases, yet still enlightenment eludes me." The physical toll of these extreme practices shows clearly in his appearance: the hollow cheeks, the shadows beneath his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. His monk's robe, always meticulously clean, hangs loose on a frame grown too thin. Yet beneath the exhaustion burns an intensity that refuses to surrender, a determination that has become its own form of attachment. "And what has this rigorous practice brought you?" Sengai asks, his voice carrying neither criticism nor praise, just genuine curiosity. "Exhaustion," Taiko admits, the word itself seeming to deepen the lines on his young face. "Pain in my body that never ceases. A mind that grows more agitated rather than less. The harder I struggle toward perfect stillness, the more violently my thoughts seem to rebel." His shoulders slump slightly in momentary defeat, then righteousness flares again. "Perhaps I am still not trying hard enough. Should I reduce my sleep further? Fast more strictly?" Feel the painful irony in this question, how his very striving for liberation has become a new form of bondage, how the pursuit of freedom through extreme discipline has created its own suffering. Sengai studies the young monk with eyes that miss nothing, taking in both the fierce commitment and the fundamental misunderstanding it contains. Without speaking, the master turns to his writing desk and selects a brush. Your attention is drawn to his hands, neither fragile with age nor rigidly controlled, but moving with the natural precision that comes from decades of practice, transformed into spontaneous expression. He prepares the ink with unhurried circular motions, the subtle rasp of ink stick against stone, creating a hypnotic rhythm that seems to calm the charged atmosphere of the small room. Taiko watches, momentarily distracted from his spiritual crisis by the simple beauty of these preparatory movements. Something in the master's complete absorption in this ordinary task draws the young monk partially out of his own turmoil and into the present moment. As black liquid pools in the stone's well, Sengai prepares a sheet of rice paper with a single smooth motion that speaks of countless repetitions, refined into effortless mastery. The moment the brush touches paper, you sense a gathering of energy, not the forced intensity of someone trying to create something impressive, but the natural concentration of someone fully united with their action. In a single fluid gesture, Sengai draws his brush across the paper, not in complex calligraphy or elaborate illustration, but in a single horizontal line. This line, you notice, contains surprising life. It begins thin at the left edge, gradually thickens as it crosses the center of the page, where the brush pressed more fully into the paper, then tapers again as it approaches the right margin. Though appearing simple, almost elementary, the line pulses with a vitality that purely technical perfection could never achieve. It somehow embodies both structure and freedom, discipline and spontaneity in a single gesture across empty space. Sengai sets his brush down and slides the paper toward Taiko without comment. The young monk stares at it, clearly expecting something more elaborate, perhaps sacred calligraphy or one of the master's famous Zen circle paintings. "A line, master?" he says finally, unable to hide his confusion. "Just a single brush stroke?" His furrowed brow reveals his struggle to connect this elementary mark with his profound spiritual crisis. "Look more closely," Sengai suggests, his tone neither commanding nor pleading, but inviting deeper attention. Watch as Taiko leans forward, studying the line with growing concentration, as if it might contain some hidden message, visible only through intense scrutiny. "It begins thin," he observes hesitantly, grows thicker in the middle, then becomes thin again at the end. Sengai nods, the slight crinkling around his eyes suggesting satisfaction with this simple observation. "The Dharma of the middle way," he says, the familiar teaching suddenly made visible rather than merely intellectual. Not too tight, not too loose, like tuning the string of an instrument. Too tight, and it breaks under the strain. Too loose, and it makes no music. He points to the right end of the line where it tapers to almost nothing. "Your practice has become like this end, so extreme that it barely exists, so tight it may snap at any moment." His finger moves to the opposite end. "Before your extraordinary efforts, perhaps you were too casual, like this other end, so loose and undefined that no resonance could emerge." Finally, his finger rests on the fullest part of the line, where the brush made its most complete contact with the paper. The Buddha discovered the middle way only after trying both extremes and finding that neither led to awakening. Feel the atmosphere shift as understanding begins to dawn in Taiko's exhausted face. The simple visual demonstration reaches him in a way that no amount of verbal instruction could have done. The abstract concept of middle way suddenly made tangible through this living line traced in ink. His breathing visibly changes, becoming less constrained, and his death grip on his knees gradually eases. "But Master," he says, genuine puzzlement in his voice, "without intense effort, how will I ever break through to enlightenment? Surely dedication and discipline are necessary for advancement on the path." "Consider your breath," responds Sengai, not dismissing the question but redirecting it toward direct experience. "What happens when you try to control it completely, forcing it to be deeper or slower or perfectly even?" Taiko closes his eyes briefly, experimenting with this internal control. "It becomes strained," he admits. "Artificial, almost painful." As he speaks these words, his own breathing naturally deepens and slows, no longer compressed by the rigid posture of extreme effort. "And if you ignore it entirely," prompts Sengai, "it grows shallow and irregular. The mind drifts. Practice loses its foundation. Yet there is a way of being with the breath that is neither forcing nor neglecting," Sengai observes. attentive but not controlling, present but not grasping. He gestures again to the brushstroke before them. This is the path, not a rigid line drawn with ruler and calculation, but a living gesture that finds its way across the page with both intention and responsiveness. As these words land, something in the young monk's rigid determination begins to soften, not collapsing into laxity but relaxing into a more sustainable engagement. Even his physical presence shifts, his posture remaining upright but without the strained quality that had made it seem like he was constantly bracing against some internal storm. Starting tomorrow, Sengai continues, offering specific guidance rather than leaving the young monk with mere abstraction. Eat 2 meals instead of 1. Sleep lying down for at least 4 hours each night. Sit in meditation for no more than 2 hours at a time, then walk mindfully in the garden before sitting again. Each instruction lands like gentle rain on parched soil, not washing away the young monk's dedication, but nourishing it into healthier growth. And instead of filling every moment with sutra recitation, allow some time each day for your mind to simply rest in open awareness, neither pushing thoughts away nor becoming entangled in them. Doubt flickers across Taiko's face, the habitual resistance of someone who has come to equate suffering with progress. But isn't that too easy, Master? The word easy carries all his fear that moderation might mean mediocrity, that balance might be merely compromise. Sengai's laughter fills the small room, not mockery but genuine delight at the perfect mirror this question provides. Try it for 1 month, he suggests, eyes twinkling with knowing humor. You may discover that the middle path is not easy at all. In fact, it may be the most challenging practice of all, for it requires constant adjustment rather than rigid rules. He picks up the brush again and adds a single character beside the horizontal line, the Japanese symbol for balance. Like walking a narrow mountain ridge, it demands moment-by-moment awareness and responsiveness. There is no formula to memorize, no technique to perfect, only the constantly renewable discovery of what this moment actually requires. As Taiko leaves the study with the drawing carefully preserved between his palms, you notice that his steps have already changed. Neither the driven pace of someone racing toward enlightenment, nor the sluggish movement of defeat, but something more integrated, a rhythm that honors both the urgency of awakening and the patience required for genuine transformation. The subtle shift in his gait echoes the living wisdom of Sengai's brushstroke, the middle part where fullness of contact creates the most vibrant expression. What makes this seemingly simple teaching so profound is how it challenges our either or thinking. We oscillate between extremes, periods of intense spiritual striving followed by collapse and neglect, rigid self-discipline followed by rebellion and abandonment. We drive ourselves mercilessly toward burnout, then wonder why our practice cannot be sustained. Or we dabble casually in meditation, then feel frustrated by lack of progress. Like Taiko, we may believe that awakening requires extraordinary measures, pushing ourselves beyond reasonable limits in pursuit of breakthrough experiences. Sengai's brush offers a different vision, not a compromise between extremes, but a dynamic balance that responds intelligently to changing conditions. The perfect tension in a violin string varies with temperature, humidity, and the music being played. It cannot be set once and forgotten, but must be continuously adjusted by a sensitive hand. So too with our practice, which requires not rigid formulas, but constant attunement to what supports rather than hinders genuine growth. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, notice where your own tendencies toward extremes might be creating unnecessary suffering. Perhaps you drive yourself relentlessly in some area of life, mistaking exhaustion for progress. Or maybe you've abandoned practices that once nourished you because maintaining perfect consistency seemed impossible. Sengai's brushstroke invites you to consider a third way, neither pushing beyond sustainable limits nor giving up entirely, but finding the sweet spot where effort and ease complement rather than oppose each other. Like the breath that continues whether you control it or ignore it, this middle way has always been available, not as a dramatic breakthrough, but as the natural rhythm that sustains life itself. Your body already knows this wisdom. Your heart neither races continuously nor stops between beats, but finds the perfect pace for each moment's needs. Your lungs neither hyperventilate nor cease breathing, but adjust naturally to changing demands. These organic systems have been practicing the middle path since your first breath, showing by example what the young monk had to learn through exhaustion and a master's simple brushstroke, that harmony emerges not from unyielding rigidity or formless abandon, but from the dynamic balance that dances between them. Let your awareness continue to drift deeper now, your body becoming heavier, your breath finding its own natural rhythm. Feel yourself suspended in that perfect space between wakefulness and sleep, where ancient wisdom can speak directly to your heart. Journey with me now to a small village in rural Japan, where a simple yet profound lesson about balance and generosity is about to unfold. You find yourself walking along a narrow dirt path that winds between rice paddies shimmering with irrigation water. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the landscape, turning the surface of the paddies into mirrors that reflect the surrounding mountains and drifting clouds. A gentle breeze carries the earthy scent of fertile soil and the sweet fragrance of wildflowers blooming along the path's edge. Ahead lies a humble village, a cluster of wooden houses with thatched roofs, smoke rising from cooking fires as the day begins to wane. As you approach the outskirts of the village, you notice a man standing at the intersection of two paths, his posture conveying both weariness and worry. His clothes mark him as a farmer, simple, practical garments worn smooth from years of labor in the fields. His weathered hands and sun-darkened face speak of a life spent working outdoors, yet it is not physical exhaustion that troubles him now, but something deeper. This is Takeo, a respected member of the village known for his diligence and kindness. He seems to be waiting for someone, repeatedly looking down the path that leads to the small temple situated on a gentle rise at the edge of the village. Relief washes over his face as he spots a figure approaching, an elderly monk walking with unhurried steps, a bamboo hat shielding his face from the afternoon sun. This is Master Mokusen, the temple's abbot, whose wisdom and compassion have earned him the trust of villagers for miles around. Master Mokusan, Takeo calls, bowing deeply as the monk approaches. Thank you for coming. I am at my wit's end and don't know where else to turn. Feel the genuine distress in the farmer's voice, the slight tremor that betrays emotions kept carefully in check. Mokusan returns the bow with equal respect, his manner suggesting that he views the humble farmer as no less worthy of consideration than the wealthiest patron of his temple. Walk with me to your home, the monk says simply, and tell me what troubles you. As they set off together toward a modest farmhouse at the village's edge, you follow, drawn by the quiet authority in Mokusan's presence and the palpable relief that has already begun to ease some of Takeo's tension. It's my wife, Master, Takeo explains as they walk. She is a good woman in many ways, hard-working, devoted to our children, skilled in managing our household. He hesitates, choosing his words carefully. But there is one quality that has brought increasing discord to our home. She is extraordinarily tight with our resources. Mokusan listens attentively, his lined face revealing neither judgment nor surprise. Tell me more, he encourages gently. It goes far beyond reasonable thrift, continues Takeo. Though our harvest has been plentiful these past 3 years, she keeps our children in clothes they've long outgrown. Our neighbors receive no help from us in times of need, though we have rice to spare. Even the temple offerings have become smaller each month, despite our increasing good fortune. His voice drops lower. Last week, my eldest son fell ill, yet she hesitated to call the doctor, fearing the cost. The monk nods thoughtfully. And you have spoken to her about these concerns? Many times, sighs Takeo. She listens politely but insists she is only being prudent, protecting our family against future hardship. My words seem to make no impression. He looks directly at Mokusan, his eyes reflecting both frustration and hope. The harmony of our home is suffering, Master. Our children are learning lessons I do not wish them to learn about the value of money over compassion. As they approach the farmhouse, the door slides open to reveal a woman in her middle years, Takeo's wife, Akiko. Her appearance is as tidy and well-ordered as one might expect from someone with careful habits. Her kimono, though simple, is meticulously clean and perfectly arranged. Her hair is pulled back in a practical style that frames a face more handsome than beautiful, with intelligent eyes that miss very little. Those eyes now widen slightly at the sight of the temple master accompanying her husband. "Master Mokusan," she exclaims, quickly composing her features and bowing deeply. "What an unexpected honor. Please, enter our humble home." Though her words are perfectly polite, you sense a wariness in her manner, a subtle stiffening as she glances questioningly at her husband. Watch now as she hurriedly prepares for this important visitor, laying out the family's best cushions, though you notice they are somewhat worn, bringing forward a small tray with tea things, efficiently arranging everything with practiced movements that waste no motion. Her hands, you observe, are strong and capable, not delicate like a noblewoman's, but beautiful in their own way, testifying to years of skilled work managing her household. Yet there is something tight in her movements, as if she holds herself in careful check at all times. When she serves the tea, you notice how precisely she measures the leaves, not a single flake more than necessary, though not so little as to appear inhospitable. The portion is exactly correct for proper hospitality, but without the slightest excess that generosity might suggest. This small action seems to confirm her husband's assessment. Here is someone whose sense of calculation has overtaken the joy of giving. Mokusan accepts the tea with a gracious nod, taking a small sip before setting the cup down carefully. His eyes, kind but remarkably perceptive, observe Akiko as she settles herself across from him, her posture perfect but slightly rigid. "You have a beautiful home," the monk comments, gesturing to the spotless room with its simple but orderly furnishings. Everything in its proper place. One can see the care you take. "Thank you, Master," Akiko replies, visibly pleased by this recognition of her efforts. "I believe that careful management of our resources is a wife's sacred duty, especially when one has children to consider." Sense the pointed glance she directs at her husband. This is clearly part of an ongoing conversation between them. Takeo shifts uncomfortably but says nothing, trusting in Mokusan's approach. The monk nods thoughtfully. Indeed, responsibility for a family's well-being is no small matter. He takes another sip of tea, then sets his cup down with deliberate precision. "May I show you something, Akiko-san?" She inclines her head, curiosity momentarily overcoming her reserve. "Of course, Master." Without further explanation, Mokusan extends his right hand and slowly, deliberately closes it into a tight fist. His knuckles whiten with the force of his grip, every tendon standing out clearly, the veins bulging slightly from the pressure. He holds this clenched fist before Akiko, presenting it as if it were an object for her careful examination. The unexpectedness of this action creates a sudden stillness in the room. Even the afternoon birdsong outside seems to pause. "What do you see?" he asks quietly. Akiko stares at the tightly clenched fist, confusion evident in her expression. "Your hand, Master," closed very tightly. She glances at her husband, who appears equally puzzled, then back to the monk. "I don't understand." Without speaking, Mokusan extends his left hand and holds it completely open beside the clenched fist, fingers spread wide, palm upward in a gesture of offering or receiving. The contrast between the two hands is striking, one closed so tightly it trembles slightly with the effort, the other open and relaxed, ready to both give and receive. "And now?" he asks. "What do you see now?" Feel how the atmosphere in the room shifts as understanding begins to dawn on Akiko's face. Her eyes move from one hand to the other, then to her own hands resting in her lap, hands that, you notice, have unconsciously formed the same tight configuration as Mokusan's right fist. Slowly, deliberately, she uncurls her fingers, allowing her palms to open upward in mirror image of the monk's left hand. "A hand that can neither give nor receive," she says softly, looking at the clenched fist. "And one that can do both." There is no defensiveness in her voice now, only thoughtful recognition. Mokusan nods, his eyes conveying approval of her insight. Both hands are needed in this life, he says. The closed hand protects what is valuable, prevents wasteful scattering of resources. The open hand shares blessings, welcomes good fortune, connects us to others. He brings his hands together, the closed fist now beginning to relax, the open palm gently folding to meet it. True wisdom lies in knowing when to close and when to open, not in remaining always in one position. Watch as Akiko's expression transforms, not dramatically, for she is not a woman given to excessive display, but subtly and genuinely. Something in this simple demonstration has reached her more directly than any amount of reasoned argument could have done. She looks at her own hands, now resting open in her lap, then at her husband with new awareness. "I had not thought of it that way, Master," she says quietly. "I believed I was protecting our family by keeping our resources secure." She hesitates, then adds with new insight, "But perhaps I have been keeping other things out as well. Joy, connection, the blessings that come from generosity." Takio's face shows a mixture of surprise and relief at this unexpected opening. He reaches across the space between them and gently places his hand over his wife's. "You have always been our family's strength," he says warmly. "Your careful management has seen us through difficult times. I only wish for balance, not for carelessness." Mokusan rises to his feet with the fluid grace that belies his advanced age. "I must return to the temple before evening meditation," he says. "Thank you for the tea and for your attention to an old monk's simple demonstration." With a respectful bow to both husband and wife, he moves toward the door, his teaching complete. As you follow Mokusan back along the path to the temple, the setting sun bathes the rice fields in golden light. Looking back, you see Akiko standing in the doorway of their home, her right hand now resting lightly on her husband's shoulder, her left extended toward a neighbor who has approached with a small child in tow. Though you cannot hear their words, the neighbor's relieved smile suggests that perhaps some small act of generosity is already flowing from the lesson of Mokusan's hands. This simple story reveals the wisdom of embodied teaching, how Master Mokusan's demonstration bypassed intellectual defenses to reveal a truth that could be not just understood, but felt. The tight fist and open palm represented not abstract concepts, but living realities that Akiko could immediately recognize in her own experience. Through this direct approach, she was able to see not just the literal meaning of excessive thrift, but its deeper implications for connection, joy, and spiritual well-being. In our own lives, we often become fixed in habitual patterns without realizing how they may be limiting us. Like Akiko, we might justify our imbalances as virtues, seeing our tightness as prudence, our resistance as wisdom, our fear as appropriate caution. We may need the equivalent of Mokusan's hands to help us recognize when we have become stuck in positions that no longer serve our deepest values. As you continue to drift peacefully in this relaxed state, consider where in your own life you might be holding too tightly or perhaps not firmly enough. Notice any areas where fear of scarcity may be keeping your fist clenched when an open palm might bring greater fulfillment. The wisdom lies not in permanently choosing one position over the other, but in developing the flexibility to move between them as circumstances require, knowing when to protect and when to share, when to hold close, and when to release. Like the natural movement of your breath, neither held in nor forced out, but flowing in its own perfect rhythm. True balance comes from responding to life with both strength and openness. As these ancient stories settle into your consciousness, remember that wisdom often comes not through complex philosophies, but through the simplest gestures: a fan in winter, salt on the tongue, the moon reflected in well water, or Mokusan's open and closed hands. The masters we've met tonight understood that true teaching reaches beyond intellect to touch our lived experience. In your own life, notice where you might be holding on too tightly, like Akiko's clenched fist, perhaps to possessions, beliefs, or even spiritual concepts. Then consider where you might benefit from more structure and containment, like Mokusan's closed hand protecting what's valuable. The wisdom isn't in choosing one state permanently, but in knowing when each is appropriate. As you drift towards sleep, imagine your own hands resting gently in your lap, neither grasping nor rejecting, simply present. Feel how this balanced awareness extends beyond your hands to your breath, your thoughts, your entire being. The Buddha's path is ultimately this middle way, not extreme asceticism nor mindless indulgence, but the wisdom to move fluidly between openness and focus as each moment requires. From all of us at Moon Mind Temple, we wish you restful sleep and awakened living. May these ancient teachings continue to illuminate your path long after this night has passed. Remember that the greatest temple is the one you carry within, your own clear awareness, reflecting the moon of wisdom perfectly, just as you are. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the heart of Zen. Until we meet again, may you walk the middle path with hands that know when to open and when to close, with a heart that burns like fire while your eyes remain as cool as dead ashes. Good night, and may all beings be at peace.